Hi, I'm Leah Thompson. I play Lorraine Baines McFly in Back to the Future, and we are here at backtothefuture.com. Thank you, fans, for supporting us and sticking with us for all these years. It means a lot. It really does.
Alrighty, welcome to the After Hours of TC Restani, the podcast. I am honored to have all the way from Hill Valley, California, this way of Alabama, my longtime close personal friend, the executive director of backtothefuture.com, the one and the only Stephen Clark. What's going on, Steve?
Hey, TC, how's it going? Good to talk to you.
It's going fantastic. Now, I always say the expression, my longtime close personal friend. With you, that's not an exaggeration. You and I have been friends now for over 25 years.
That is true. We go way back, don't we, my friend?
We go way back.
We've been buddies for quite a long time.
How we actually came in contact was back 25 years ago, long before Al Gore invented the internet. If you want to know anything about movie memorabilia, you had to go look through magazines, or you would get these little newspapers. And
That's true.
I got one of these newspapers, and in it said, Back to the Future items wanted or needed. Now, I've never seen that before in any collector's magazine, and this was around 1990, 1991, and I was like, well, I got to call this number, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the magazine, but I do faintly recall placing several ads in the very early 90s. Looking for kindred spirits who shared my passion for the Back to the Future trilogy, and you were one of the unfortunate people who responded to my classified ad. But yeah, you and I have had quite an interesting journey over the last 25 years, my friend.
And I do remember that first phone call very well. After we talked about Back to the Future for about 3 hours, someone brought up Friday the 13th.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And all of a sudden, we had another 3-hour conversation about Friday the 13th. Now, the subject here is Back to the Future. Of course, like we said at the top of this interview, you are the executive director of backtothefuture.com. How long has backtothefuture.com been in existence?
Well, as backtothefuture.com, really only about 4 years, but prior to backtothefuture.com, the site was known as bttf.com. And that site, that domain was registered in January of 1997. But the site actually predates that because, shortly after you and I first became friends, I encountered another gentleman, and we kind of started off this little fan club, like a fanzine. Which was popular back in the 90s, pre-internet, and it was called the Hill Valley Telegraph, and we had, at its peak, roughly about 500 issues that would come out once a quarter. But around the mid 90s was right around 95 was when the internet really started to it was made public, and people could start registering domains and getting websites. And I'm an old school programmer, so I jumped on it pretty early on, and taught myself how to write web page code, HTML, and just did up a little web page. It was very crude at the time, very basic. And just had some information about Back to the Future on it. Not a whole lot of content. I think it was just called Back to the Future, the web page, and it was up on just a dial-up account with a company here in North Alabama, run by, of all companies, named Traveler Highway Internet Services, Traveler Internet Services, I believe. And so I had a web page about Back to the Future and time travel on a domain called Traveler. But that lasted probably a year and a half until I could afford to register a domain and move it to its own domain. And so I registered bttf.com in early 97. I keep wanting to say the 80s, but it was early 97. And the site has been in continuous existence for well over 2 decades now, including that original dial-up site. So it's been quite an interesting journey.
And you are the only official sanctioned Back to the Future website on the internet, correct?
That's true. Last year, through our persistence and just longevity with the series and working with a lot of the filmmakers and the cast. Last year, we did partner with Universal Studios Home Video, and they asked us to be the host of the 30th anniversary rollout of the re-release of the films, and so that they had a 30th anniversary campaign built around October 21st, 2015. And so yeah, we're now considered Universal's official Back to the Future website after after well over 20 years of working at this. And so it's been a long journey to get here, but it's been very gratifying to finally have that distinction associated with the site and the work that we've been doing all these years.
To quote Doc Brown, it took your entire family fortune to realize the vision of that day.
That is absolutely not far off the mark. So it is an expensive venture, but yeah,
Now let's go back to 1985. Now, did you think after seeing Back to the Future for the first time that it was going to engulf your life forever?
Actually, no, not the first film. I saw the first film opening weekend, and saw it with my then fiance, who's now my wife of almost 30 years. But we saw it just a few days before we got engaged, and I saw it. I saw it twice at the theater with her, and I thought it was a great Spielberg, inspired movie, and we certainly were fans of Michael J. Fox from Family Ties, and certainly Christopher Lloyd from Taxi, and so so many other people that we knew, Leah Thompson from All the Right Moves.
She certainly did, yes.
And Jaws 3D, and Crispin Glover from Friday the 13th, the final chapter, just the year before. So there was a lot of actors we instantly recognized. But it wasn't until like a year later, the following summer, when Back to the Future was released on home video for the first time. Back in those days, you didn't have movies that were big blockbusters and came out on home video just 4 months later. It was like an entire year later. And
right. Correct me if I'm wrong. That came out in April of '86.
April or May. I think it was actually May. I think it was May of '86. And so it was almost an entire year. It was a good 10 months later. And in those days, you didn't really have sell-through where, people like you and I could just walk into a Blockbuster and go buy the movie. It was, pretty much price for rental. And so if you wanted to buy a copy of it, you had to.
It was like $100.
Yeah. It was, maybe $89, $90, $100, somewhere in that price range.
For a VHS tape.
For a VHS tape. And so at the same time that it came out, and I was in a bookstore and ran across a magazine, Starlog magazine, which is a magazine I had from time to time picked up. I did not have a subscription. I don't remember what possessed me to pick up that issue, but it was, I think, the magazine's 10th anniversary, and it didn't even have Back to the Future on the cover. It had Evolved Movies. It had Short Circuit on the cover. And I was just in a bookstore thumbing through it, and it had this 3-page article on Back to the Future, and it was entitled "The Other Marty McFly," and it had this wild theory of there being a second Marty McFly. And I thought, I didn't see this. I read through it, and I realized that there was all these little intricate details in the film that I had missed when I saw it in the theater twice the year before.
You only saw it twice in the movie theater, Steve.
I only saw it twice in the theater back then, yes.
I saw it 13 weeks in a row, all right? Well, you were a little older than me, and I was
Yeah,
I was a
yeah.
young kid, so I had a lot of time on me, and it was summer vacation.
I was working full time, and I was also going to college full time, and so yeah, I didn't go to the movies that frequently, but I did go to the movies a lot back in my 20s. But so I immediately went out. I bought the magazine. Still have that original copy that I bought all those years ago. Still have that same issue. And I went out and I found a video store that had Back to the Future. I rented it, and with my VCR, just frame by frame, over a weekend, just went through it. And that just really enthralled me because I always liked time travel stories anyway.
So I'm not the
Uh,
only lunatic that did the movie frame by
no,
frame.
no, absolutely not. So, I had really enjoyed the first Terminator movie just the year before, and that was probably the first real big time travel story I had ever really seen in a theater. And so Back to the Future just kind of built on top of that with time travel and just the whole loops and and alternate realities and all these things, and it just that really enthralled me back then. And so I went through that VHS tape really in depth, and so it captured my imagination for a little while, and then I put it away. I got married and moved to a different town, and so got a full time job after I got out of college. And back in the late '80s, you didn't have the internet, but there were still things like, I don't know if you're familiar with CompuServe. Have you ever heard of
Sure,
CompuServe?
absolutely.
Yeah, CompuServe was a big, kind of like the predecessor to AOL, and so CompuServe was around, and I had an account, got an account, and I discovered all these bulletin board systems that were out there, BBS for short. And so while I had some downtime at this job I had, I would get on this mainframe and connect in through CompuServe and meet all these people and discuss. This was right around the time Part Two was about to come out or had just come out. And wow, that just really kicked it into high gear for me. All of a sudden, all the stuff I had read a few years earlier on Part One, Starlog magazine had some new articles, and I started meeting people who also were enthralled with Back to the Future and Part Two and alternate realities and alternate timelines and all these things that went with Part Two. Suddenly I was really hooked. I mean, really, I mean, all the way. And so, back then I did everything. There was no internet to go on to. So, I mean, I was, looking for any kind of article, whether it was in Starlog magazine or Starburst magazine from the UK, anything, any kind of magazine I could get out of a store, bookstore, I would read and talk theories with all these people on CompuServe and these bulletin board systems. And so, went through that. Part three came out, really big on that as well. And by the time that kind of died down a little bit, then the Back to the Future ride came out. And so my wife and I took a trip to Universal Studios Florida for our fifth wedding anniversary. And I got to ride the movie. And, that was quite an experience to be able to go and see this brand new storyline with Doc Brown and Biff Tannen, and be able to sit in a DeLorean and ride this simulator ride at a theme park. And I came back from that experience with my geek switch completely turned on all the way, and it was not ever going to get out of that gear again. And so that was in January of '92. The Back to the Future cartoon series had just come on a few months earlier. It was
One
on
of my
six.
favorites.
I know it is. And So there was a lot of within a 2 year period, Back to the Future fans had Back to the Future 2, Back to the Future 3, Back to the Future the Ride, and Back to the Future the animated series. Had just for a 2 year period, man, it was great. And so I came back after that trip to Orlando, and I immediately started getting on the phone. I thought I have got to find a way to get a copy of the footage that was in the ride, because that was my Back to the Future 4. I knew there was not ever going to be a Back to the Future 4, even though I really wanted one. I came back, and for months I would call it Universal, trying to find and talk to somebody who could, either worked at the ride or, just trying to find some kind of connection. And one fateful day, and this is probably around time you and I knew each other at this point, but one fateful day, somebody at Universal transferred me to Bob Gale's office. Bob still had an office on the back lot at Universal, because he was directing the second season of the animated series, and he was an executive producer on the series. So I got transferred to Bob's office, and really after that the rest is history. Because I've kidded Bob ever since that I bet he regrets the day he ever took my phone call.
Now, Bob Gale has got to be one of the coolest individuals I've ever met. I know he's 100% behind what you do at backtothefuture.com.
Oh yeah, Bob is a great supporter, a great friend. He has been 110% behind everything that we have done for the last 2+ decades. I've always said I can't do what I do without the support of Bob Gale, and he has been extremely supportive all these years. I mean, he's kind of he's really the glue that keeps the whole franchise together. He has his fingerprint on everything. Even 31 years later, he is still very heavily involved with the franchise, and everything that goes into it. Every collectible that comes out, any spin-offs like the comic book series that's out now, Bob is heavily involved. And Bob has been a great friend for all these years. He's definitely been a mentor of mine, been very supportive. And like I said, I just couldn't do what I do without Bob Gale.
And Bob doesn't get the credit he so justly deserves, because everybody says Spielberg and Zemeckis made Back to the Future. But Bob Gale is the heart and soul of Back to the Future. It was his story that he conceived when he went back home and found his father's yearbook and said, what would be cool to go back in time? Would I actually be friends with my father when I went to high school? So here we are
Yeah.
31 years later. And you're right. He is the glue that keeps Back to the Future together. And he deserves a lot more credit than he doesn't get.
Oh, absolutely. Bob has, as a writer and producer, certainly probably has not had the same Hollywood accolades that Zemeckis has had, and certainly Spielberg. But Bob is every bit responsible for its success and longevity for all these years. And you're right. I mean, it is his story that he came up with, and I've had the privilege of meeting his dad several times. His dad is in his late 80s, I believe. And I just saw his dad just a few months ago at the DeLorean car show, and that Bob was at. So Mr. Gale, his dad, has just got a great sense of humor. He's so funny to be around, and the whole story was inspired by the fact that his dad was the president of his senior class, and Bob looked back in his annual, his high school yearbook, and thought, I would never be friends with the guy who was the president of my senior class. And so it just kind of spawned that little idea while he was home visiting his folks, and what a tale it's been all these years later. I think he came up with the idea actually 35 years ago. And so 31 years later, after it came out in theaters, we're still talking about it.
And we'll be talking about it for another 31 years.
I hope so. I hope so.
Now, getting back to backtothefuture.com, it has evolved, as you said, over the last 20 plus years. And
It has.
How many visits a day does BackToTheFuture.com get?
Well, it kind of fluctuates, no pun intended. It really depends on what's going on at the time. I will say that b- back last October was definitely the pinnacle to this whole thing. Never in my wildest dreams did I believe that October 21st, 2015 would have been as huge as it was. The media jumped on it. Everybody around the world jumped on it. The White House jumped on it. I mean, it was just phenomenal. And so I would have to go back and look at actual numbers, but I believe the month of October, we had somewhere around the neighborhood of 19 million hits that month, and just that week alone was well over 10 million hits just in that week alone. So it was phenomenal. Nothing we had experienced up to that point, and probably will never experience again since afterwards. But it was certainly lightning in a bottle.
And lightning never strikes twice.
And lightning, unfortunately, never strikes twice.
Now, BackToTheFuture.com is probably the greatest place in the world to find rare Back to the Future memorabilia.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of had a reputation for. Well, let me back up a little bit. Merchandise. There's a lot of merchandise out there that has come out since the films uh, ended their run in theaters. There was not a whole lot of merchandise during that run, but since then, since the ride came out, there's been a lot of merchandising and been a lot of pirated merchandise. And so early on, I made a policy that we were only going to deal in official memorabilia, official licensed memorabilia that went through the proper channels to get licensed through Universal Studios and Amblin Entertainment. We were not going to sell anything that was bootlegged, and that includes, T-shirts and handmade props and anything like that. So we have only stuck with official memorabilia, and that has served us very well. It has allowed me to work with a number of licensees over the years and work on some very exciting collectibles and products. I've worked with Lego and Sunstar, and just a number, several games, and it's been a lot of fun. I've done a lot of writing for the packaging or the instructions, or have taken the instructions and gone through them to make sure that the instructions are correct for a product. And so to be able to be involved at that level, it's very gratifying to kind of be elevated to this resident expert on Back to the Future, and be able to look at something and go, that's accurate. Oh, well, you need to change the spelling of this word, or you need to, Marty would never say that, or, however, it is proposed. It's been very gratifying. Now, not all the companies come to us and ask for us, and I wish they did, but we've been very successful. And we continue to refine the site. We're going through a redesign right now, and so hope to roll out an updated appearance to the site here in the next few months, and have a few new features. We're going to roll the storefront that's been actually on a bttf.net domain for many, many years. Getting ready to roll that into the backtothefuture.com domain, and bring it all under one umbrella, one site, and make it just be cohesive, just really make it work a lot better than it has over the years. Because be honest, this kind of was piecemealed together for 20 years. If I needed a bulletin board, discussion board, I went and got this software. If I needed e-commerce, I went and got this. If I needed newsletters, I went and got this. And so over time, it's kind of gotten spread out. I'm trying to take all the components and bring them back in house, and that's been the effort for the last 4 years. It just takes, unfortunately, it takes a lot of money and time to do that, and so that's one of the reasons we stay out there continuing to provide a service to Back to the Future fans worldwide. But at the same time, it's one of the reasons it's important for them to continue to support us financially through merchandise sales, because the merchandise sales is what keeps the site up and going all these years. We don't do any kind of advertising. We don't do any kind of banner ads or any. That's also been a long time policy not to have any kind of advertising on the site that doesn't directly affect Back to the Future. I mean, the last thing somebody wants to do is come on a Back to the Future website and see an ad for some kind of department store like Walmart or something, or have some kind of ads for something that has nothing to do with Back to the Future.
Right.
So
now, getting back to your meticulous detail about Back to the Future merchandise, I was fortunate enough back in 2009 to go to the world headquarters of Diamond Select Toys. You remember this trip, Steve?
I do remember that. Trip. We did have a
and
good time.
they brought out the prototype for their Diamond Select DeLorean, and I had to close your jaw because it opened, and you went through it with a fine-tooth comb. It was like watching a precision artist or a mechanic go through something, and you were saying, this is wrong, this needs to be yellow, this needs to be this and that. And they were like, there was like 5 people writing down these notes, and like, well, they said, well, you're the expert, we brought you in. And it was actually a thrill to actually see this actually happen. And I myself pointed out a few mistakes that they had as well. So in a way, part of me is in that Diamond Select toy.
Absolutely, yeah. It's certainly not just me out here doing this. So I mean, it's knowledgeable folks like yourself, and but yeah, you and I went to the New York Toy Fair in 2009, and I had the intentions of going there for Diamond Select and a few other companies that we were working with at the time, because I knew of a few products that were going to be debuted there, but that 1/15th scale DeLorean was a complete surprise. I had no idea that they were working on that. So you and I got there and discovered that they had not one, but they had 2 models, a Part 1 and a Part 2 car. And so I do remember us spending a lot of time with Diamond Select and talking with their CEO and giving their folks some notes to take back, because it was, like you said, it was a prototype. I don't think that came out for maybe at least another year commercially.
Right.
So they went back and took a lot of our ideas that we gave them at that show. And so, but it's things like that that's very gratifying to have that, opportunity to have a company, a very, big company, take your ideas and actually your thoughts and your ideas and actually put it into production. And so so I've worked with people like Diamond Select on various products. We did an exclusive with them a couple of years before that. I did a Mini Mates exclusive through them. Had worked with them on a product, and still have some of those here that have never sold. But so that's what has kind of continued to keep the passion alive for somebody like me who has really lived the dream all these years and working in this field and meeting all the actors, Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd, and our really good buddy, you and I both are friends with Tom Wilson.
Remember that time we had dinner with Tom Wilson in New Jersey?
Absolutely. So we've, you and I have been on a lot of interesting journeys together.
And here's one thing that the fans, I'm going to say this, but the fans out there don't know this. My favorite actress of all time is Leah Thompson. I fell in love with her the moment I saw her in Jaws 3. And many, many, many years later, she was on Broadway, and she's just a doll in real life, one of the sweetest people in the world. And I walked up to her and I whispered in her ear, "I'm a friend of Steve Clark." Now, for years, I've always thought what I would say if I could whisper in Leah Thompson's ear. It never was, "Hi, I'm a friend of Steve Clark." But you know what? It opened a door. and we got to interview her and take pictures and whatnot, and it was awesome.
How
So
about that?
I'll have to, I want to publicly thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome, my friend. I did see Leah this past summer in Philadelphia at Wizard World, and
And
got to talk to her for a few minutes there. So
and
it's always fun to see Leah and all the cast. It's very gratifying to have those relationships.
now confirm or deny this, Steve. Did she whisper in your ear, "I'm glad I met TC Restani"?
Okay, TC, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
If you can believe that, or if you want to. Or
Well, I
not,
am going to believe that. I will believe that. But yeah, like I've said, we've met everybody in the cast and
Yeah,
a lot of people behind the scenes,
Absolutely.
and
absolutely.
the people who are involved with Back to the Future are some of the most down to earth people and coolest dudes and dudettes that we've ever met.
Dudes and dudettes, yes. It's been been a great journey. I've met so many incredible fans, and you and I are really good friends with Terry and Oliver Holler.
Oh,
I mean,
those guys, they're saints.
I mean, is there anybody greater than those folks? I mean, my goodness, to spend as many days on the road as they do in their DeLorean time machine, going around the country
No,
and internationally, like they are right now, internationally, raising funds for Parkinson's research for the Michael J. Fox Foundation. There's not anybody else on this planet doing that, spending every day of their lives
for
doing
years and years and
for
years.
years. And so, they've got the same car. They built the car in 2001. And I met Oliver and Terry in 2002 at a show down in Orlando, and we've been friends ever since. It's a remarkable story, and but there's so many people that we have encountered over the years, and the fandom is really tight. So many great people involved with Back to the Future. From the fan side, it's like I said, it's not just me out here. There's so many other people out there, so many great stories, so many great people who are out there making a difference. I mean, the folks who restored the DeLorean a couple of years ago for Universal, and it's out there at the Peterson Museum in L.A. now, where everybody can see it in its pristine condition.
Right.
It's movie glory, because fans got together and spent a year meticulously restoring that car, because it sat out on the back lot for many years, and the weather and the elements destroyed the car. And fans went to Bob Gale and said, "Hey, we want to restore this." Again, Bob Gale went to Universal and said, "Hey, this has got to happen." He made it happen. Relied on some very talented fans to come together and take that car, and took a whole year to restore it. And now, for the rest of time, that vehicle will be there for, they saved a piece of movie memorabilia, movie history, Hollywood history. And so there's just so many stories out there like that.
They restored, without question, the most famous automobile in motion picture history.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I had no hands-on experience with that. All I did was help promote their campaign, and just their efforts. I sat here in Alabama while they did all the hard work, and it paid off. And so here we are a few years later, and the car can be seen 7 days a week at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, because a dozen or so fans came together who had all these talents. And I'll be honest, I am one of the least talented guys out there. I just have had a knack for doing online for all these years, and it's just been a passion. And so like I said, it's not just about me. It's about the fans and what makes Back to the Future popular for all these years. And
because of your friendship, I have met everybody in the cast that I didn't meet until I met you. And I'm obviously Oliver and Terry are great friends, and they're inspirations to everybody out there that's involved with fandom. And you also introduced me to Bill and Patrick Shea.
Yeah.
And
oh wow, the Shays.
The Shays, who have the only screen used DeLorean in private ownership.
It's the only one in captivity.
It's
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is. It's the only one in captivity, and
yeah,
it's the dune buggy version of the DeLorean from
yeah.
Back to the Future 3.
Yeah, there's
And
only out of the movie cars, there were seven that were used throughout the trilogy. Only three survived. One of them is at the Peterson, like we discussed. There's one at Universal Studios Orlando, and then the other one is owned by the Shays. The only one in private hands, and it's remarkable the collection that they've got. You and I've been to their facilities and
the
have
the the Back to the Future barn.
the Back to the Future barn.
And
Uh, uh,
when you called me back in 2012, you said, "Wait a minute, how far away is this from your house?" Now I live in Boston, Massachusetts,
yep, yep.
and you called me, "How far is this such and such?" And I looked it up, and it was an hour away. And he said, "Well, guess what? An hour away from you, the actual screen used car from Back to the Future 3 is now going to be on display." And as soon as I got off the phone with you, I emailed the Shays, told them
Yep.
who I was, and like 2 months later, I was out visiting and actually sitting in the screen used DeLorean from Back to the Future 3. That would not have happened if I did not pick up that newspaper 25 years ago
How about that? How
that had
about
your little ad in it. And of course, the Shays, we love the Shays. They're crazy. They have so much
Oh,
movie
wow.
memorabilia. They just got the mind reading helmet.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's
The one and
insane.
only.
The one and only. That's fantastic out there. Now, if you won the lottery tomorrow, Steve, what piece of Back to the Future memorabilia would you want to get your hands on?
Oh wow. Unfortunately, a lot of props and costumes have already passed through my hands, and so I don't own a lot of props and costumes anymore. I own very, very few now, but over the last 2 decades, I have owned different pieces and have traded with several folks, and a lot of my collection is actually in that barn now because the Shays have bought it through different channels because when you're in this business and you're just an independent person out here running a website, sometimes finances come calling, and you have to sell something that's a cherished heirloom. I've owned so many things. I've owned uh, one of the things that was been the funniest things I owned was Marlene's skirt that Michael J. Fox wore in Part Two as his daughter. I owned that skirt for a while, and I owned one of the Western shirts that Michael J. Fox wore, and just a number of things like that. But I've owned a lot of paper memorabilia, several of the newspapers, an almanac, an ooh la la, one of the receipts from the blast from the past. One of the cherished things that I no longer own, but one of the great things that I really enjoyed owning for a short period of time was I owned all of the continuity Polaroids from all three films.
I remember those. I
I
remember
got
those.
all of those from the Property Master, and I loved having those unique photos that were taken on the set. And, you could probably describe more about what continuity photos are than I can, but, it's just something, back in those days, you didn't have CGI, and you didn't have, everything was real effects. They were practical effects. And so, when they would leave a set for the day, the property master would come out and take these Polaroids on an old Polaroid camera of how everything was left. And so they had to line up the shots the next day in case something got moved or something was missing. They could look at these Polaroids. Oh, wait a minute, that cup was over on this side of the table, or that plate is moved, or whatever. And so in those Polaroids, there was a lot of you know, boring shots, you would think, because it would take a lot of interior shots of like inside the McFly house and where the food was on the plate, and this drink was laying here, and the peanut brittle was over in this bowl, and things like that. But at the same time, there was some really interesting stuff in there. I had a few shots of Eric Stoltz. There's a photo of Marty in the in the Lone Pine Mall parking lot, laying face down after he fell down that little hill to go see himself time travel. Just Doc Brown laying back in a recliner with full makeup, 1955 makeup. I had some really great shots, and so. But like I said, over time, finances required that I sell those, and so I got into props and costumes collecting. You and I've got some good friends in that business.
We do indeed.
Jeff Castillo at ScreenNews.com. And so Jeff and I were some of the real early pioneers of being the collectors of Back to the Future props and costumes and production materials, scripts and call sheets and all that stuff. And so those guys again, known those for he and Jeff and Desi have known those guys for a long time, and they've got a thriving business that started with all of us coming together and doing a big show in Orlando, the same show that we met the Hollers at. And so it's just I had all those things, but finances sometimes require you to sell those, and so as time went on, more and more people got into the collection and got into collecting Back to the Future because of something a few of us kind of started from scratch, and then a lot of other people started catching on, and people with some deeper pockets than what I had made me some offers for some things. So one time I owned one of the original pairs of the clock tower cables, and so the only prop that I still have today that is still here is the very first prop that I bought. I actually own the Part 3 prototype Hill Valley train station map that you see in Part 3. It's not the screen used one because I don't know where that one's at, but I own a prototype that was an early version of the one you see on the screen. Mine was not aged like the one you see in the film, but it has all of the same details on the map. The only difference between mine and the one that you see on screen is that mine is not aged, and mine has a dotted line across Shonash Ravine. I think best what I've been able to understand after all these years is that they needed a different map because on screen at the time it was hard to see the dotted line. So the one you see on screen just has there's just a blank space across it. But mine has a dotted line where Shonash Ravine, where the bridge would have been. And so that's the only prop I still own today. It was the very first one I ever bought, and I still have that one. So, but all the others, a lot of the photographs and call sheets and scripts and a lot of things like that, all gone into other collectors' hands. And like I said, a lot of it's there in Massachusetts at the Shays Barn.
Well, you can always go and visit it anytime you like.
I know where I can go visit my collection. It's in much better hands. It's being displayed and much better cared for than I ever could curate here in Alabama. But it's been very gratifying to be able to go visit their facilities and say, wow, hey, I used to own that crew jacket. I used to own those photographs. And so that script there, that used to be part of my collection. So I know where a lot of that stuff has ended up over time. So.
Well, there's one piece of memorabilia that I'd like to get my hands on, but I don't think Arsenio Hall is going to give it to me.
I should have known you were going to go there.
And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, back in 1989 when Back to the Future Part 2 came out, Leah Thompson went on the talk circuit to promote the film, and she gave Arsenio Hall her fake big boobs from the alternate 1985. And
yes, she did.
Now, I'm wondering if Arsenio still has that, or am I going to go to the Shays one day and they're going to be mounted on the wall?
Nothing would surprise me more.
No, nothing would. That wouldn't shock me at all.
Not at all.
I'd be getting a phone call from Patrick say, "Hey, guess what we got?" I'd be like, "Oh my God! Well, I got to come out and see that thing." But fascinating out there. So, well, of course that was going to go there. I'm TC Restani. Where else do you think I'm going to talk about? Some almanac. So now Back to the Future, we're past the 30th anniversary, and it's still on the forefront of people's minds. Everybody still loves the franchise. A new generation discovers it every single day.
Yep.
I'm going to ask the question that everybody always asks, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway.
Okay.
Do you think there's ever going to be any type of version of a Back to the Future 4. Not a motion picture, or maybe they could do an animated, or like what Zemeckis was doing all that time, that motion capture stuff. Do you think they're going to continue this story in some way?
Well, right now they actually are continuing the story through in comic book form. A few years ago, Telltale Games came out with a brand new video game that Christopher Lloyd and Tom Wilson and Claudia Wells and even Michael J. Fox provided voices for. It was a true continuation, a new adventure that picked up 6 months after the activities of the third film, and so that was very successful. It kind of ended on a to be continued note, and so a lot of us are still holding out hope that Telltale is going to give us a second season or second and third season of that game. But like I said, right now Bob Gale is overseeing a brand new comic book series that began on October the 21st, 2015. It's almost a year old now, and I think we're up to, I think issue 12 comes out here just maybe next week. So it's almost been going on an entire year. And it answers a lot of fan questions. There's been a lot of really neat details that Bob and the crew at IDW Publishing have put in there. A lot of the dates have meanings for Back to the Future fans. One of them is it was a date that was actually used in the Telltale game that's also used in the comic book series was May 14th. Do you know what May 14th was?
I believe that's either Gale or Zemeckis' birthday.
It is actually Robert Zemeckis' birthday. So they'll use a date like that, and it has other meanings. So there's no mistakes in Back to the Future. There's nothing put in there that's not has no meaning. There's always some kind of meaning for details like dates and times and things like that. And we may not know the answers to everything that has a meaning, but there's always some kind of meaning that's used in there. And so a lot of what I was getting headed towards was it answers a lot of the stories that fans have had over the years, like how did Marty and Doc first meet? Well, guess what? There's an issue of the Back to the Future comic book series that answers that question. And so there have been several issues. Like I said, issue 12 is about to come out as we speak now. And there's also been a comic book adaptation of the Telltale game. There was a mini-series, and it was a 5-issue mini-series, and issue 5 of that's just about to come out. So that's about to wrap up, and then they're getting ready to go back to a monthly issue. But there's been several arcs. They're getting ready to start a new arc, a new story arc, I believe, with issue 13. Issue 12 is kind of a one-off story on the story about Needles, and I guess how Marty and Needles first met. So. But yeah, in terms of continuations, we also have Back to the Future, the musical that has been in the works for the last few years that Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis and actually even Alan Silvestri have been working on for a few years now. And so don't have any new information on that. The last we heard it was probably going to be sometime in 2017. So still got my fingers crossed. I hope that's still going to happen.
But for all the information, you can always go to backtothefuture.com or follow you on Twitter at backtothefuture.
That's correct. That's correct. We, as soon as we know information that we can share, those will be our channels for letting people know through. And we also, like I said, we've got an email newsletter we send out several times a month that has links to stories that you may have missed off of our website or through Twitter or through our Facebook feed. And so very active on social media and just continuing to live the dream, TC.
See, I have an in. I actually just pick up my phone and call and say, what the hell's going on? And I know stuff months before anybody else does. And of course, I never let the cat out of the bag because that's not that wouldn't be fun.
Well, and there's still things I know that I still can't tell you.
Well, I know things too. So let me just put it that way.
All right.
But one thing we are in agreement with, that there will never, ever, ever be a stupid reboot of Back to the Future.
That we absolutely know for a fact. Both Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis have said repeatedly on record that their contracts with the studio that it requires that they have that they give permission, and so they have to give their blessing for any kind of sequel or remake or reboot, and they are anti remake and sequel and reboot, and so we know that there's not going to be anything like that, and rightfully so. Michael has ever since Michael let his illness be known back in 1998. They pretty much put it to bed at that time. Have basically said they don't want to do a Back to the Future movie that does not have Michael J. Fox in it, and so almost 20 years later, they have stuck to those to that rule. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. And so
Good.
Michael's still doing very well, and I had, like I said, I campaigned in the early days. I campaigned very heavily for Back to the Future 4 in the early days of the site and the newsletter.
I remember the phone calls from you. All hours of the day, I'd be getting a phone call. And I'm going to use my southern accent here. There's something going on out in California. every couple months, I would get that phone call, and you're like, they're cleaning up the car. They're doing this. They're doing that. Something's going on. Something's going on. And I was like, well, what is it? And he goes, well, I'm going to have to go find out. Well, we found out nothing was going on, which is good. Because, I mean, we're huge Back to the Future fans, and we saw how other franchises are ruined and embarrassed by relaunches or reboots. I mean, look at this past summer. The Ghostbusters franchise went down the toilet, and the fans basically showed that they don't care. They don't want it. It'd be the same thing. I mean, if anything happened like that to our franchise, there'd be a war. There'd be a riot going on in front of it.
It'd be very unfortunate. And I just, I don't, thank goodness we've got somebody like Bob Gale that is the gatekeeper. He is,
no pun intended, from the Ghostbusters.
But he is making sure that nothing that is not pure and relevant and applicable to the series. He's making sure that nothing is comes out on store shelves or in theaters or on bookstore shelves or anything like that. He's making sure that if it's something he wouldn't like, he knows that fans wouldn't like it either. And so
he's very vocal about these things. I know.
Absolutely.
He was very vocal about the Mattel hoverboard stuff.
Yeah. So there's been some hiccups. We've all experienced a few things that didn't turn out the way we expected, and so you live and learn. And so, but we're just very fortunate to have a showrunner like Bob Gale who continues long after the films ended their theatrical run, that he is still very protective of that property, that intellectual property, and so very fortunate that he continues to make sure that that fans are still satisfied, that they are still getting some kind of entertainment and collectibles. And so when there's a lot of proposals that I'm sure across his desk that we never hear about, that he shuts down. And I've heard of a few of them over the
Was there
years.
ever a Back to the Future the cereal in the works?
I'm not aware of any Back to the Future cereal. I don't know what kind of flavor the fire trails would be, but but no, there's a lot of things I'm sure that get proposed that get shot down and never make it past the concept phase. But a lot of things do, and so like I said, I've been fortunate over the years to be involved with a lot of those, and it's been quite a journey. And for now, the journey has not ended. It's still very active, and I hope the fans have liked what we have done and keeping a website up and running for over 20 years, and keeping
20
them
years have come and gone.
and keeping fans apprised of new developments. And you know, if you open up your 30th anniversary DVD or Blu-ray, you'll actually see an insert in there for BackToTheFuture.com. And there's four things that we basically focus on now. We focus on the latest movie news, upcoming appearances, upcoming events, cast and crew appearances, and the latest collectibles. And so official collectibles. And so those are the four areas that we really focus on and or try to stay involved with. And it's some days, it's a challenge, but we're doing the best we can. And like I said, I hope fans will continue to support us online, and that they'll look to us to supply them with official collectibles. We try to stay competitive with places where they can buy these things in their own stores, but we try to make it where it's compatible and competitive, where they can afford to buy them through mail order. And
I can testify to that. Many UPS packages from BackToTheFuture.com have landed on my penthouse porch every day, especially last fall when I got the 1/16 scale DeLorean.
1/6.
Oh, wow, excuse me, 1/6 scale, the one that cost $800, but worth every penny, because I'm never going to afford a real DeLorean, and it's fantastic. But anytime I need something Back to the Future related, you're the first person and the only person that I can call and guarantee that it's authentic, it's not a bootleg, and it's worth its weight in gold.
Well, thank you, TC. I appreciate the friendship over the years and the support. And again, just having the majority of fans support us and know who we are. And I think the longevity, the persistence, and staying in it for so long, people, have been familiar with me and what I've done all these years. They can actually see the Back in Time documentary on Netflix.
I was just going to say that. It hasn't gone to your head that you're a big Netflix star.
No. So, they can actually see my ugly mug on there and hear Bob Gale talk about what it is we do as well, and kind of give a testimony and endorsement for the site. And so, so you don't have to take my word for it. You can pop in that Blu-ray or DVD or go on to Netflix and see that documentary yourself, and let Bob Gale speak about what we do. So, but yeah, again, the merchandise is what keeps the site going, and so we try to make it affordable, competitive with other places where you can buy these things, because we know, if you find it in a store, it's right there. You want to buy it. But we try to be a one-stop shop for all your Back to the Future collecting needs. And we have a very large international following, and so we ship worldwide. And so a lot of places won't do that. So we go the extra mile and make sure that we ship worldwide. And so we want everybody to be happy and satisfied with our service, and just keep supporting us. We'll keep doing what we're doing, and as long as we can, as long as there is a need for BackToTheFuture.com to be around.
BackToTheFuture.com definitely has stood the test of time. And I want to thank my real long-time close personal friend, Steve Clark, who has been a big supporter of mine over the years, and I want to say that publicly out there. And you're a great guy, great merchandise, great information, and you should really send the people at Starlog Magazine a Christmas card, because if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be having this long, in-depth conversation right now.
That's true. I need to look up some of those names again and give them a good thank you card this year.
Hi, I'm Leah Thompson. I play Lorraine Baines McFly in Back to the Future, and we are here at BackToTheFuture.com. Thank you, fans, for supporting us and sticking with us for all these years. It means a lot. It really does.